Hey guys, welcome to the RZN channel, and today I got the RG350M in front of me. Now, as you know, I got almost all the OpenDingux devices and I know pretty well my way around with these handhelds. But this over here, because of the build quality, made me such a nerd for it that I just can't get enough of getting my hands on it. This is addictive. And if you already have an RG350, you may know that it is a very good handheld, and it is not the most powerful one, especially for this price right now, which is 130 bucks. You can get a Retro CM3 that plays N64 games almost at full speed. But still, I prefer this one because of the build quality. I am a sucker for that, apparently. I just found out, and I am pleasantly surprised by how well built this is. A quick thing that I need to mention is that only 2% of the viewers of the channel are subscribed to the channel, which is kind of sad and a very low amount. I hope you guys would like and subscribe and press the bell button to just stay tuned with my videos. I upload every time a new handheld comes out. I try to be on time to upload those videos about those handhelds, and most of you guys are interested in that, so like and subscribe and support the channel. You can tell me what you want in the comments down below. And let's just get on to the internals of the box and check that out. So right off the bat, I noticed that the box is quite heavy, of course, because there is a metal handheld inside of it. It is well protected with a piece of foam, and underneath that we have the actual handheld, which we'll just put to the side to check the internals of the below compartment of the box. Here we got a USB Type-C cable, and we got the user manual, as well as a quick start guide for all the functions and shortcuts to the functions that this device has, like the aspect ratio changing and the filters and the sound and brightness and stuff like that. So when I held this handheld for the first time in my hands, I just had to say, this feels like pure quality. It's made out of an aluminum alloy, and to the back we have two silicone grips for it not to slip out of your hands, which is quite thoughtful of them. The battery is 2500 milliamperes, just like the prior iteration of this handheld, the RG350. But the thing is that it depletes quite faster than the prior iteration because the display is a lot denser in pixel density. The display is 640 by 480 resolution, and it maintains the 4:3 aspect ratio, which everybody loves. Now, holding this in my hand and testing out the controls, I just noticed that this is the best input feel in any handheld that I have in my collection, and that is not an understatement. The analog sticks are very similar to Nintendo Switch analog sticks. They feel the same, they click the same way, but they're kind of different because they're soldered to a PCB. That is the dead giveaway, that they're manufactured differently than the Nintendo Switches, which means that we don't have to worry about the analog stick drifting and stuff like that. The trigger buttons are very nice and clicky, easy to click, and very satisfying to click around, as you can hear. Now, the bottom of the handheld houses two SD card slots. The first one is for the firmware, and the second one is for all the ROMs that you want to load on it. You can opt for a 32 GB SD card preloaded with ROMs, but I'm not going to question the legality of that stuff because, you know, I just digress. The reset button is recessed into the body of the RG350M, but when you need to get to it, it is easy to get to, as you can see. The right side of the handheld has the power button. It's not easy to accidentally press on it, by the way. And the left side of the handheld has the volume rocker, which is like the power button, not easy to accidentally press. The top of the handheld has two USB Type-C ports. One of them is for OTG and developer stuff. You know, they can add a Wi-Fi dongle and also an extra controller when you plug it into your TV with this slot over here, the HDMI port. There is an extra firmware update that came out just a while ago, but it's very early on, so I did not install it onto my RG350M, but it adds HDMI capabilities to the handheld, but it still is in an early stage. Some emulators are not working on that build. That's why I did not add it to my RG350M. This here is the headphone jack, and this is the USB charging port, USB Type-C, which is very nice to see on handhelds these days. So let's talk about these specs. Now we have inside of this handheld almost the same specs as the RG350, apart from the screen, which is almost double the pixel density. So which makes the screen a lot more crisp, but the battery life a lot less. So it has a 1 GHz dual-core processor and a 512 MB RAM memory in it, so it is good for all emulation up to PS1. N64, it isn't really great on this handheld. You can compare it for this price point to the Retro CM3, which is capable of playing N64 games at a very satisfying speed if you optimize it perfectly. But if you want to suffer and play N64 games on this one, it is not working great yet. Maybe in the future they will work on it, but I have my fingers crossed on this one. Let's move on to the emulator experience and the games that we're going to play on it. This handheld comes with a lot of emulators pre-installed already, but you can add your own in case you want to expand your library of emulators. Now you can add the OPK files into the apps folder inside your SD card, the external SD card, and it will read it and add the emulator, as you can see what I did with the N64 emulator over here, the Mupen 64 Alpha. It wasn't there, but I could add it using that feature. Now the emulators that are already pre-installed on here is MAME, DOSBox, FBA, Game Boy Color, Game Boy, NES, Master System and Game Gear, WonderSwan, SNES, Genesis and Mega Drive, Sony PlayStation 1, Neo Geo Pocket, Game Boy Advance, another SNES emulator, and another MAME emulator, as well as the Neo Geo and the PC Engine. Now, there are some ported games over here in the Games tab, and I added Quake 2 to it using the same feature as I added the N64. Now, I can show you the directory where you can add your OPK files so you can know where that is in the external SD card. As you can see over here, we got apps and ROMs and stuff like that. The nice thing is that you can just add the OPK file over here and then it will show up directly on the catalog or menu. The ROM folder is where you put your ROMs. If you have the same spelling for the folders, it will access it automatically. Otherwise, you'll need to mess around with the settings of the tabs inside the menu, and that is not very nice. So it's better to have the right spelling of the BAT and add the ROMs in those folders, the corresponding folders. Now pressing Y and quit, you can exit the commander. Beside that, the developer scene is very active and you can expect a lot of updates in the future and some very interesting custom firmwares as well, like the Rogue custom firmware that they work on the Discord server. And it's very nice to see how lively the community is. So you will not be worried about any future updates not coming out on this handheld. Now, let's go on and play some games and test out the emulators that are pre-installed on here. So let's talk about a couple of points and talk about my verdict while we're doing some gameplay. You guys will already own an RG350. Of course, you'll be questioning if this is a worthy upgrade and if you're missing out on anything with skipping this handheld. I would say probably you will not miss anything the developers will make and cook up for this handheld, but you will miss out on the premium feel of this handheld, and it really feels better than my high-end phone. The aluminum body is just terrific in a good way. It's just awesome. And you will be missing out on that and the more crisper display. In case that's a big deal for you, then yeah, you might want to buy this handheld. If not, you can just wait maybe for this handheld to drop in prices, because it's 130 bucks. I know that's a little bit more expensive than your average handheld, but if it drops down to $100, most of you guys probably will find it a lot easier to buy. And definitely in the future it might drop in prices unless the demand becomes higher. That's how market and buying stuff works. Now, the hardware of this handheld, as you guys who already own the RG350 know, is very good. It isn't the highest end of hardware. PlayStation 1 runs exceptionally well on this handheld, but when we go and talk about N64, yeah, it struggles really hard, and you will notice that in the gameplay. Now that is very important to me, N64 gameplay, but if I have to compare it to an N64 well-running handheld like the Retro CM3, I still have a hard time recommending the Retro CM3 over this handheld, because really this handheld has a very good build quality, and yeah, it's just very dear to my heart right now. But if I had to compare it to the RG350, the plastic version, yeah, then definitely the Retro CM3 is much better. I do hope that the N64 is going to get a revamp or gets the little bit work done on it, but my fingers are crossed on that one, and I can't stress that enough. Another thing that I want to talk about is yeah, some good points about this handheld. This handheld has a perfect IPS display, has very good sound quality, it can get very loud without distortion, and overall it's a perfect handheld unless you are talking about high-end retro handheld emulation, stuff like that, like Dreamcast, PSP, and Nintendo 64. We got some other handhelds that do that a lot better, and even for a cheaper price, like the Retroid Pocket. So you want to check out that video in case you're interested in such handhelds. That handheld, even though while the quality is a lot less, can handle Dreamcast and 64 and PSP emulation. A lot of you guys didn't like the Retroid Pocket for its build quality, and I can kind of relate to that. But if that is lesser of a concern to you than actual emulation and power, then you might want to check that handheld out. It's a lot cheaper, it's for 70 bucks, and that is very cheap, to be honest. Now, another thing that I want to talk about for last but not least is the emulators on here. Yeah, they are running very well, as you can see in the gameplay. All of them have frame skip capabilities. You can put the frame skip to auto. It's pretty much out of the box is already set to auto, and all of them are running very well. The only thing that I had a gripe with, which is not a big issue because you can change that on your own later on and figure that out on by yourself. The PC Engine emulator had some input issues, but you could change the settings and everything is well and hunky-dory. And that is it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed my review on this handheld, and my verdict on this handheld was satisfactory to you. Please like and subscribe and hit the bell button and tell me what you think in the comment section down below. I hope you guys will have a great day ahead of you, and I'll see you guys in the next video.